Hello, welcome to Return to Self. My name's Alana, and if we haven't met before, then it's lovely to meet you. Now, today I've decided to do something a little bit different. I'm talking about toxic shame and integration of the shadow side. This is something that I have been putting off primarily because I don't think I was ready to do it. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you haven't seen my other videos, I have a background in mental health. So I like to combine psychological knowledge with spiritual concepts. So what I thought I'd do is just explain a bit about shame. I'll take you through why shame is useful, but also why toxic shame is not. And then I'll talk about ways in which shame can manifest in people and also ways of integrating issues in relation to toxic shame. To start with, shame is not necessarily a bad thing. It's necessary for social, emotional development. It helps to aid us in empathy development. It's useful for personal growth, and it can help us to adhere to ethical standards. So that can be, as psychologists, for example, who acknowledges the need to not have relationships with their clients because they recognise the power inherent in that relationship. On the other hand, toxic shame is not particularly useful at all. It's the belief that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's a belief that you are somehow broken, flawed, or not acceptable in some way. It impacts on every area of your life. It impacts on your friendships, career, the way you parent, basically every aspect of life. It's characterized by that deep belief of not feeling good enough. It often develops when you've experienced a childhood that was emotionally invalidating. So that can be in families and things like that, where your emotional needs weren't appreciated or accepted. Basically, it's just an invalidation of your feelings and emotions. It exists when love or safety is conditional. It could also be that your family was physically and mentally abusive in more extreme cases. There's also shame in relation to your identity traits. So you could have been shamed for your level of sensitivity, your expression of anger, your expression of sexuality, of curiosity, and things like that. It's not uncommon for people with neurodivergent conditions to feel a lot of shame throughout their life. Using the example of a hyperactive child with ADHD, they're more likely to encounter numerous negative messages about their identity. People perceive them to be bad in some way, whether it's because they're interrupting all the time, they're being physically violent, distracting people, creating conflicts and things like that. So the child can then start to internalize some of those messages that they've heard continuously throughout their life. It can also happen when there's chronic comparison. So it could be, say, a parent constantly comparing a favourite child, for example, with a less favourite child. So you might have heard of the golden child and the black sheep. So the golden child is obviously the child that can do no wrong, and the black sheep is the one that's always at fault and always blamed for things. And you can experience a lot of humiliation and things like that. Over time, shame becomes internalized. So an inner critic replaces the external one. If you were criticized all of the time by, say, your mum, a teacher, a dad, a caregiver of some sort, and you repetitively heard the message that you're not good enough or there's something wrong with you, you will at some point start to internalize that message, particularly if this messaging happened during childhood, because you take in so much information during those younger years and haven't yet developed that ability to critically analyze the information that you're taking in. You may not be able to understand that some of your parents' criticisms and things like that were actually a result of their own wounding. You just feel like there's something wrong with you. It tends to be very global. You tend to have very global thoughts about yourself. Everything about you is bad, not just certain aspects. You're fundamentally flawed in some way. It's also pre-verbal, so shame becomes stuck in your body. It's felt not just in your thoughts, but also in your physical body as well. So that can manifest as anxiety, intense sort of feelings of shame, and anger as well can be another one that people might experience a lot of, especially if they've been taught to repress emotions. It might come out in passive aggression or even more overt aggression in some cases. It really depends on your personality type. And basically, to avoid feeling the intensity of the emotions that come with toxic shame, the shadow aspect pushes out aspects out of your conscious awareness. The shadow is thought not to be evil, but actually just repressed aspects of yourself. Basically, everything that you have disowned in order to belong or survive. So, how toxic shame and the shadow reinforce each other? I guess the shadow aspects of yourself say, if this part of me is seen, I'll be rejected. So it's a fundamental rejection of self. In order to avoid feelings of shame and humiliation and things like that, that can become quite overwhelming, your psyche will basically suppress those shadow aspects of yourself that it's not capable of dealing with in that moment. It judges it. This can be a part of the inner critic for those of you who have done a bit of psychology and things like that. It also projects it onto others. They're selfish, they're angry, they're needy. It feels fragmented and inauthentic. So your shadow self doesn't feel authentically you, basically. It's not particularly well integrated into your identity. The more you repress the shadow side, the stronger it becomes, and the stronger the shame loop cycle becomes as well. The shadow often contains anger, neediness, dependency, and longing. It can consist of pride and ambition, usually in an overly driven kind of way. It can consist of sexuality, pleasure, creativity. It can also consist of grief, vulnerability, and softness. So these might be parts of yourself that you don't feel able to express because of your upbringing or conditions that you have been impacted by. Toxic shame doesn't just happen during childhood, but it is more likely to happen during childhood. Basically, because these parts weren't safe to be expressed, a part of you will just exile them. So these parts aren't integrated, they're fragmented parts. So what does shadow integration actually mean, and what doesn't it mean? Integration is not acting out the shadow aspects of yourself, and integration is also not approving of harmful behavior. What integration means is seeing the disowned aspects of yourself without moral judgment. It's understanding that these aspects of us exist because we've been wounded in some way. It's also understanding why this shadow aspect has formed. And there's lots of valid reasons as to why we develop shadow aspects. It may be that that was the safest way for us to express ourselves during a certain period of our life. It's also allowing its core need or energy. So it's basically allowing that aspect of you to exist, and it's consciously choosing to express your feelings rather than repressing them or internalizing them. Shadow integration consists of parts work. What I'll do is go into a series on these various aspects of shadow integration work over the coming weeks, and I'll probably just tackle one part at a time just to help you understand how to work with these parts of you that are needing to be integrated. It also consists of ego state integration. That's something that, again, I will go into in another series, otherwise this will just become too long. There's also self-compassion, inner child work, and reparenting. So there's a lot of different frameworks that make up shadow integration work. They're all important, they're all valid. I think that you need to take different approaches to shadow work because of the complexity of integrating your shadow side. Anyway, I hope that this has given you a bit of an overview of toxic shame. For any of you that have experienced this, know that to work with your shadow side, it takes a conscious integration, it takes a time, and it takes a lot of inner healing work. But you can do it. It's not impossible, and you don't always need to feel that overwhelming sense of shame. Well, I hope that this has given you a bit of an overview, that it's helped you to understand toxic shame. And over the coming weeks, like I said, I'll present some more information about ways that you can start to try to work with these issues. I wish you the best as you embark on this whole process. And if you could please like or subscribe, and leave any comments, ideas, thoughts in the comment section below, that would be great. See you in the next one. Bye.